This prosthetic is trash. Yep, you heard it right. A while back, I was helping clean up an effects lab and the owner found this piece poorly stored and just kind of hanging around. So he picked it up and essentially said, "It's you or the trash." So why is it trash? I mean, yeah, it's a little dingy and dirty. Well, this is what it's supposed to look like. You see that little border of silicone around the entire piece? That actually serves a very important purpose. It helps keep the edges usable, so it blends nicely into the skin and keeps your makeup from looking like, well, garbage. But I am not one to let a prosthetic, unusable to some, stand between me and a really cool creature makeup. I definitely want this to be a complete look, but I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to a costume. I'm gonna actually repurpose some EVA foam armor from a previous look. Just gotta remove the gears and paint it black. Figured the makeup is going to be very colorful, so I wanted the armor just to be a solid color and not cause too much attention to it. Used Skin Illustrator because I planned on bringing that silver detail back. Rubbed everything down with a chip brush because I did not apply the silver leaf very well, so it did leave a little weird texture. Switched to a stipple sponge because that's a little more abrasive, just trying to smooth stuff out and get some of that paint off. Now I'm just going to dip a Q-tip in some alcohol and get those silver edges back. This is probably the easiest distressing I have ever had to do. The Skin Illustrator has a matte finish, so for the channels, I'm going to use a acrylic black that has a bit of a satin finish because again, I still don't want to cause too much attention to the overall armor. Now there are shoulder pieces from the original armor. As much as I wanted to save time, I also just don't want it to look like a black version of the steampunk android. I had these elbow pieces lying around. Just add a little silver paint and some of those fake rivets that I have on the rest of the costume. And full disclosure, I had just happened to throw these pieces on top of the mannequin while working and thought they actually look really cool on the neck piece. So this design was totally accidental. Repurposed the arm pieces too, and added larger scrapes and scratches with a chip brush and some of that silver paint. I love reptiles and doing anything with scale texture, but hand painting them is an absolute nightmare, and the 2D with a stencil are okay, but I really wanted 3D ones to go with the face. I do have this scale pattern fabric, but it's definitely too thick to be using for texture on the headpiece. This would be much better if it was made out of latex or even a Bondo transfer. But I just don't have the time to sculpt and mold anything like that. So we're gonna try something and do this the complete wrong way. And just make a silicone mold right over the fabric as is. And we'll see if it works. Cut a panel out and added a ton of glue on the back of that and the board and stick them together. The reason I'm doing this is I wanted to make sure none of that silicone was going to seep underneath the fabric and then cause a whole other host of issues. Mix up the silicone and cover it. I should probably explain the reason you would actually want to sculpt this is with the sculptures, you can create a blending edge where the pattern kind of softly disappears, as opposed to this where I am totally going to just get a blunt edge that just ends out of nowhere. Did a few coats of latex. There's definitely somewhere to start. Now, even though, like I said, this has no blending edges, so it's gonna cause an issue, I decided to still make some with Bondo. Just picked some sections and scraped it. This is definitely messy considering this mold is not made for this. Popped it in the freezer for 20 minutes and that's actually not too shabby. I did go back in with some of the latex and try to just make thinner versions and just hoping that the edges being thinner will make it easier for me to hide any blunt edges from the other pieces I made. And also figure the prosthetic only covers the top portion of my face, so that lower part is gonna need some sort of texture. Want to make the head shape a little more interesting, so created a ridge going down the center of it, just using cotton and latex and carefully not trying to smash it. That was looking pretty good, and I turned the camera off to blow dry it. And when I put it back on the table, it toppled over and of course landed right on that ridge. You can see I feebly tried to smush it back into shape, and that didn't work very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of do a quick fix and get this looking somewhat like it was before. Luckily, I don't have to worry too much because it is gonna be covered with the latex panels of scales. Okay, that will work. So I'm gonna cover it in glue and grab those latex scales. I cut out a section of the larger scales, and you can see I trimmed it really wobbly. That will be easier to hide than a straight blunt edge. Doing this a section at a time, trying to lightly stretch it and keeping it from folding or buckling. Once I got to the top of the head, I realized I could not get that piece to go down the back without it folding on itself really bad. So I'm just gonna cut this into a separate piece. In my excitement, I jumped to adding spikes, but then I realized that in between the spikes, there's no scale texture, and that's gonna look really weird when I go to paint it, going from scales smooth back into scale texture. So I'm gonna pop those off and finish up covering this whole head in scales. I'm gonna test out those Bondo transfers. I just figured they might work better for the curve of the head than the latex did. And instead of transferring them to water slide paper, I'm using a paper towel because it's just more flexible and easier to work with. Carefully get it in position, push it down, wet it, and peel. That actually worked way better than I expected. Just added some glue on the edge of the transfer just to blend it some. The front is not great, but the prosthetic should cover a lot of that, so I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Now I can re-add those spikes, but I'm gonna peel this off the head form first so I don't do it later and end up ripping the horns off. Using foam clay spikes from an old project and just applying these on with Bondo. Now I just have to smooth the Bondo out and let it dry. Let's get this painted. I'm gonna start with a vibrant pink. This is actually from a top secret Illustrator palette that's about to be released. Making a bit of a stripe pattern because I thought it would make it look more interesting than just making like a pink striped mohawk down the center of the head. Moving on to blue from that same palette, just filling the open areas. These colors are really fun, and I definitely want to do another look with it because for this one, we're going to be covering a lot of this with a lighter color because I just want the vibrant colors to be in between the scales. A ton of this is really just going to get covered up. Now, if I put light colors on top of it, those bright colors are going to bleed through, and it's going to make my job a lot harder. I'm going to go ahead and seal this with some glue to stop any of that from happening. Oh man, these colors look really cool glossy. Powder this sticky mess. Now I'm gonna go in with some light Illustrator colors to get the texture to pop. I started out with using a sponge and it was kind of working, but not as well as I would have liked. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that color with a brush and just kind of lightly raking it across so all the high points grab that color. The larger scales do have some low texture that the brush is just not touching, and I figured if I tried to hand paint it, it might end up looking a little strange unless I did it to all of the scales in the head. So I'm gonna go ahead and airbrush it. That way it still builds the color up, but it's softer. Also went over some of the smaller scales, but again, I'm not gonna spend the time to paint every single little scale on this thing. Back to that super secret palette, grabbed a purple, and that's gonna be a shader for the base of the spikes. And I'm also gonna lightly add some of that purple to the spikes themselves. I added a little bit of the purple in some other areas because I do wanna incorporate this purple as the contour shading color on the face, and just wanna make sure that that color is also in the headpiece. Still want those scales to pop more, so dry brush some white over it. Also brightened up the tips of the horns. That's much better. Now, this was a lot of work, so I'm gonna seal all of this with glue to help protect the paint job. I don't wanna just use my human ears. I want a little bit more of a creaturey silhouette. So I have these big foam latex ears that I thought would do the trick. Just have to clean them up and especially get all that glitter off of them. And there's a little bit of damage, so I'm gonna go ahead and just fix that real quick. I decided to paint them blue because I was worried if I did the pink, it would just be way too bright and kind of draw your eye away from the face in the final look. Use some more of that purple for shading and seal everything before we go in with the lighter color. I'm using a stencil for this because I didn't want to glue any of those scale panels onto the ear because I plan on using these ears again, and most likely it's not going to be a reptile look. There's still a lot of blue showing compared to the head, so I'm going in and sponging that light color and even spattering just to dull them down a little bit. Add a little bit of pink to match the head. Well, we're not starting this makeup out on a good foot. My original plan was to apply a bald cap because I wanted to put the ears on first. I was worried the ears were gonna cover up too much of the scale texture. While I was making the headpiece, I was also making the bald cap, though at some point I just never applied the final layers of latex. So when I removed it from the head form, it was just riddled with holes, and as you can see, it's just not usable. So now I'm gonna attempt to do this with a wig cap and the help of some two-way tape. Also, to help hold the top part of the ears, I used paper tape for the areas that went over my hair because I really don't want to put glue in it. Oh, and don't be fooled thinking this is some innovative technique. I am completely making this up as I go and hoping I don't fall on my face doing this. It's definitely fake it till you make it. They seem pretty well stuck, so now we can move on to the headpiece. Was hoping that the sides were gonna come far enough so I can glue it onto my skin, but it completely just ends on my hairline. So I'm gonna cover that with some paper tape and glue onto that to keep the glue out of my hair, because I am not going to be removing this makeup properly, and I would like to keep my hair when I rip it off. Blend the edges some, but the face is gonna cover a lot of this, so I'm not gonna worry about it too much. The lower part of the face is exposed, so I'm going to add some of the scales and just start with the chin. Now the jaw area, I'm gonna add some. And when I was making the latex blenders, I thought it might be cool just to see what white school glue did as far as making blender pieces. And well, it actually worked, so I figured why not apply some just to see how it goes. I figured they might end up being too brittle, but they actually applied really well. Kind of impressed, and I do want to try this for a different look sometime. And again, I'm just kind of blending a little bit, but there's still so much to do. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Now for the nose on the prosthetic, she is a problem. The bridge of my nose is way too flat and it is not going to fill that nose. So the ridge texture is just gonna collapse and look really weird. So I went ahead and put some cotton in there just to fill it and help it to keep its shape when I have it on. Also, at some point, the eye got torn, so I'm just going to fix that before I even glue this on. This makeup's already gonna be a challenge. I really just don't wanna add any more hurdles than I need to. Well, these edges, or lack thereof, are gonna be fun. I'm gonna just get this glued down and try to lay flat any of the edges that actually still exist. Seal it a few times with glue in hopes to try to blend it, but there's definitely areas that are gonna need a little work. Just added some strips of plastic Baldy's material to help blend it down. While covering everything in glue, kind of coming to the realization there is still so much work to be done, but we are definitely at the point of no return, so we're just going to have to get this done. Now the temples go from scale to smooth skin back into scale texture, and that looks a little odd. So I threw in little panels of scales. That way it just continues the texture all the way through. I'm gonna hide the cheek edge under some of these latex blenders. Unfortunately, because the glue blenders were clear, I couldn't really see them at this point. So a lot of them got covered. Now I'm just gluing over all of the edges and crossing my fingers that any blunt edges or issues just disappears. Either way, it is time to paint. Avoiding painting the larger scales because I'm gonna have to cover them in a light color anyway. Throwing pink on top of it is just gonna be extra work to get rid of later. Made some sort of pattern that looked cool. Sure, that works. Okay, now for the blue. Unfortunately, in those areas, the scales were so tiny that I just kind of had to cover everything completely. I'm gonna seal this with the glue, just like the headpiece and the ears before that. Now it's just a matter of trying to get the face to match the rest of the look. I have to admit, I was actually a little concerned about matching the face. Those colors are just so vibrant, and I felt like I was losing the battle a little bit. Despite my cool and collective appearance, I am definitely panicking a little bit, but it's that trust the process point of the look. Jumped to the airbrush to help pack on that light color, then moved to pure white and just layered the crap out of it. It still doesn't look as soft as the head. I was really just hoping that was because the mouth and the eye area just were that vibrant color, and it was really just throwing me off. Started to add some 2D scales with the stencil and brighten up the larger scales. Wanted to bring in the purple for contouring. And now I'm just gonna finish up the mouth. I ended up dry brushing even more of the white and noticed that a lot of the scales, the center was dipped in, so it wasn't grabbing any of the paint. So I just took the airbrush and brightened the center of a lot of the scales. Think that these pieces are finally tying in together. Time for the lenses and going to attempt to finish my eyes. I really didn't consider how disorienting having 6 pupils looking at you in the mirror could be, and it was actually making me feel a little dizzy at some point. I gotta bring more of those scales closer to the eye to get rid of that kind of weird, deranged rainbow panda look it's giving right now. My vision is a bit of a mess, so we're just gonna have to trust that we are good to go. I also added these really awesome teeth from Bitemares. They even glow in the dark, but unfortunately the lenses kept trying to pop out of my eyeballs, so I never got the footage. If you enjoyed the journey in this makeup, I actually revived a set of foam latex pieces that were an absolute mess to create a brand new Ice Dragon makeup. So be sure to click over to the next video and I'll see you there.